Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Firstly, I'd like to thank KSI and the Wawasan Open University and MICCI for coming together to organize this summit. We all went through 2 years of entrepreneurial challenges, which none of us predicted. Nothing like the global recession that we had over the last few decades. So let us listen to our speakers who may be able to enlighten us with, by identifying new challenges for the growth which will shape the future of Penang. You're not here to listen to me, so I'm just going to shut up. I am very humbled here with the presence of towering personalities sitting all around me and on video, right? And I will briefly introduce them because if I read their CV, it will take the whole day. Firstly, I'd like to introduce Sri and Shang, an old friend of mine, a former central banker and financial regulator in Asia, and a commentator of global finance. He is the pro-chancellor of Bristol University and distinguished fellow, Asian Global Institute, University of Hong Kong, as well as chairman of Georgetown Institute of Open and Advanced Studies, Wawasan Open University, etc., etc., etc. It goes on for about 18 pages, but I'll stop there. Then we have Dato, Dr. Beng. Beng is on the screen somewhere. He's in Singapore, unfortunately. Beng is the executive director of Penang Institute and member of various Penang state government bodies, such as the Penang 2030 Advisory Committee. He's also a visiting senior fellow of IC's Yusof Ishak Institute, where he was the deputy director from 2011 to 2017, senior fellow, Jeffrey Chia Institute for Southeast Asia, Sunway University, adjunct professor, and member of the Industry Advisory Committee, School of Liberal Arts, etc., etc. It goes on again. Then we have an old friend of mine also, Dato Sri Wong. He's involved with the electronics industry as the president of the Malaysian Semiconductor Industry Association and champion of E&E Productivity Nexus. He is a member of the Pemuda Public and Private Sector Special Task Force to facilitate business and improve Malaysia's global competitiveness. He was in Intel for 27 years, so he knows everything about E&E, right? Again, next to me is Michelle Van Kruber. Michelle is also a colleague of mine in the chamber, old friends, country manager of Pyramid Malaysia Sdn Bhd, factory in the forest. He was elected the branch chairman of MICCI, Penang in the North Branch in December 2017, and has held the position since. He's worked in Penang for over 30 years, in Malaysia already for over 30 years. He's been in several organizations, and very qualified, and young and quite good looking too. So, etc., etc. again, right? It goes on. Lastly, we have a speaker, Penang-born Stephen Lai, a CEO of Seed Penang, a social enterprise with the mission to promote social entrepreneurship and enterprise development in Penang. An international business and technology consultant who spends over 30 years overseas in the United States and Singapore, is currently serves as a strategic advisor to the Penang State Exco for Trade, Industry and Entrepreneur Development. Pro bono, he told me. And he's also a business member in the tech startup CEOs in Silicon Valley, Singapore, and Penang. So those are the speakers we have today. I don't want to waste time. They have about 8 minutes to speak, each of them. Can I first invite Tan Sri Andrew to give his address? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Congratulations on your receiving your Lifetime Award. I have to apologize, because of time is very short and we're running late. In the West, you start with a joke. In the East, you always apologize. And I'm going to apologize because I'm going to speak very, very fast. I've got quite a few slides. Next, please. Sorry. It's, whoops, you've gone past. Okay, very quickly. The issue is that Malaysia is in a sweet spot. I'm just going to summarize what I want to say, okay? We have moved from the pandemic, it's a crisis, but the opportunities are now huge because technology is the game changer. Malaysia is located in ASEAN, which is going to be the 4th largest economy in the world by 2030. How we get there, particularly from Penang, is the key. Now, I want to thank TYT and Tan Sri Kosukun and Michael Yeo for the introductory speeches, because the numbers for Penang are fantastic. TYT said Penang accounts for $400 billion worth of exports, likely this year. But we are 6th in GDP of only $97 billion. $100 billion, but earns $400 billion worth of exports. Our FDI is only 14 billion. 14 billion FDI, 50 by foreigners, 50% by locals. And yet it generates 28 times exports. Something is wrong with our numbers. Penang happens to be the 6th, in Malaysian GDP, which is incredible. I mean, so let me now very quickly move to the Malaysian review. If you look at the numbers, Malaysia had sorry, this is not the one, so the pre ones. Malaysia in the 11th plan was 2.7, and now we're talking about 4.5 to 5.5. We've got all these game changers, and they're wonderful. I highly recommend you read it. But look at the big picture. The big picture is that in 2010, Malaysia was number 3 in ASEAN, and we are now number 6. We are now behind, Vietnam, Indonesia, Philippines, okay? And they are growing faster than us. Demographically, Malaysia is actually as good as them, all right? Natural resources was good as them. ASEAN is this fantastic opportunity. We are neutral in the US-China geopolitics. How can we lose? Everybody wants to invest in ASEAN, right? So how do we get there? So the issue, in a sense, is 4 things. Climate change is system change. Climate change is the big threat, but it's a system change. And we can't move on climate change because of mindset problems. Meta, Tan Sri Rania just now and had a very good conversation over coffee. It's all about mindset. If we think we are second rate, we will be second rate. But if we think we can get there, we will get there. The macro is favoring us. The big picture is the huge opportunity from technology, from geopolitics, from location. Location. Penang is right at the heart of ASEAN, with all the trade routes. How can we lose? The micro is excellent. We have a lot, as TYT, Tan Sri Kosukun said, Penang has got tech, nature, culture. So we got a good micro, we got a good macro. We have a problems at the meta level, and we don't have the institutions linking them. So the issue is really all this. Now, if you then look at what happens, MIT professor Alex Pentland is the leading guy on digitization. And he says it is due to the decentralized system that are helping local communities to cope with terrible global problems. We have global issues that the global guys cannot address. Change is now coming local, and digitization enables you to change at the local level. Okay? So, if we really look at what is happening, even in our country, the politics at the center is complicated. What is happening to the change is all at the local level. Communities need to make that change. So, Penang has all that cluster effect. We were, thanks to, 40, 50 years ago when all the IT people came, we now have a cluster of more than 20, 30,000 engineers, and we are beginning to produce all the things that are beginning to have that hyperbolic effects, right? As you can see, this hyperbolic effect in the monetary creation that's creating, bubbles everywhere. So the US-China tensions is actually the opportunity for us. Because everybody wants to invest in a neutral country that can trade with everybody. And we are right, we can do this. But the big problem is mental. You can talk all you like. If you don't walk, if you don't execute, vision and aspiration without execution is delusion. Talk is cheap. Getting things done is the tough part. And that's where we really now need to go. So how do we adapt this model? Actually, if you really think about it, in Penang, we're extremely lucky that we have Bayan Lepas and Kulim and the Northern Corridor and all the big leading foreign companies, and we now have some of the leading Malaysian tech companies, right? We have some of the leading brands, in the culture, tourism, etc. The question is now, how do we take them to the next level? Okay? And the taking them to the next level is a mental issue. If you believe that you will always be a supporter, you will always be a supporter. You can't move into the Olympic side. So it's all about innovation. And I'm working with Dr. Lily Chan and Tan Sri Koh Tsu Kun at Wawasan Open University. And also, many of you are all friends of Wawasan Open University. We need to change the education system. We need to link the schools to the jobs, so that as former Vice Pro-Chancellor of Uni Razak, when I was giving the certificate, I don't say Tanya, I said, I hope you get a job. Right? And the way to get jobs is to train them so that the curricula starts from the school to the university and straight into the jobs that they can use. So in a sense, what is Malaysia's true strength? Malaysia doesn't have scale. 35 million people cannot compete with 280 in Indonesia, 1.4 billion in China, 1.3 billion in India. How to compete? We don't have the scale. But small, we are Sangkanchil, we can move with speed. We look at the scope, right? And we are multicultural. Penang is a completely example of this, right? Speak Indian, Hokkien, Malay, Arab, we're all here in Penang. And, so we have to move fast and nimble. But we cannot get there unless we have a social contract. We had it before in an NEP, but in the new complicated age, we need to have a conversation how we want to envisage the future. This is not a conversation just between the great powers. This is a conversation between all of us. How do we want to have jobs, good jobs, inclusivity, fairness, planetary, having a biosphere UNESCO recognition is incredible for Penang on top of a heritage UNESCO recognition. So we have this, right? And so to conclude, look at this picture. Right? Malaysia has all these young talent, and this, of course, SK Lau, who is in Tencent, right? we have all the talent with us. We have the social technology. That's what makes Malaysia great. So just listen more, care and share, and walk the talk. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Tan Sri Andrew. That was an excellent beginning to this summit. And the message is very clear. You must change your mind, do something about your mindset. It's all about execution. And how do you go to the next level? And we have to look at how we change the education system in this country. Thank you, Andrew. The next speaker is Beng, Dato Beng, who will be coming in on, is it on Skype, right? Yeah, Beng, please go ahead.
Yeah, hello. Hi. Thank you, Dato Sri Nazir. Great honor indeed to be on this panel. And in keeping with what Tan Sri Andrew said about Asian culture, I must apologize to the organizers that I cannot be there physically today. Good morning to all my fellow panelists and to everyone present. Now, not being well versed in macroeconomics and definitely not one in the class of my fellow panelists, let me instead take a social, cultural, and socio-political angle instead to discuss the challenges this panel is meant to explore. I will do that by mentioning certain key initiatives my institute has been strongly involved in collaboration with an array of agencies and institutions who have Penang's well-being at heart, and most of these as contribution to Penang state policies. Now, one of the things that Penang Institute is proud to have done was to lay the groundwork and to convince the Penang state government to establish Digital Penang, an agency responsible for digitalization projects within the government, with the goal of creating an ecosphere conducive to this next stage in Penang's industrialization. This is a vital step in the implementation of the Penang 2030 vision that was launched by the Chief Minister in August 2018. Now, Digital Penang was established in April 2020, just when the COVID pandemic began in all seriousness. Now, details of Digital Penang's work, I think Mr. Tony Yeo, its CEO, will be talking about later today. But basically, the goal is to create in Penang as strong a digital environment as possible in as short a time as possible. As you all know, digitalization is the prerequisite for practically everything else we wish to talk about concerning the economic future of Penang. And well, also in the light of COVID-19, the portfolio shakeup was carried out by the state government in 2020. And this clearly reflects the new priorities post-COVID. So the portfolios of agrotech, creative economy, and social development, among others, were created. Now, after that preamble, let me highlight two things for discussion. The first is that with COVID-19, we should be more cognizant than ever that GDP figures do not really measure how people at the lower strata of society are managing, especially not in the short term. The crisis has hit the poor in very painful ways. There is, in the immediate term, a need to develop micro-level initiatives to provide assistance and to facilitate recovery at street level. The well-being of many people going forward, especially those at the lower end of the economic ladder, is going to depend on the acquisition of basic skills, of digital literacy in as broad a sense as possible, and of practical education, and not education whose payback lies too far in the future. There's a strong need to inject optimism and a sense of capability into society, the mindset change perhaps that Tan Sri Andrew was talking about. Make people feel that they must put their back to the wheel, get innovative, be bold, be collaborative, be optimistic. The second point I would like to highlight is the serious lack of collaboration and connectedness between various segments of Penang society, economy, and government. We need to break that trend, and we have a good chance of doing that now when so many players in society are in a build back better mode, and when digital means are at hand for us to adopt. So in phase 2 of Penang 2030, in which the state government calls Accelerating Penang 2030, we and the agencies that involved are helping to construct projects that promote synergy. Synergy is the key word. First, we need synergy between elected representatives, agencies, and departments. So community-based initiatives have been started to strengthen state assemblymen's work at the community level, aided by agencies such as the PYDC, the PWDC, the PGC, and Digital Penang. We are supporting volunteerism in Penang society, promoting digital literacy and so on. I think Ms. Ong Bee Leng of PWDC will talk more on that later today. I believe, as will Mr. Tony Yeo of DP will do. Second is the need for synergy between private sector players and public sector players, for startups and in education, among other things. Hubs for developmental synergy involving Think City, Wawasan Open University, USM, Penang Science Cluster, Forward School, and several other players are in the works. The most important of which will be the Creative Digital District, what we will call the CD Square, in the middle of Georgetown. And third is the need to engage Penang's big and small industrial players in initiatives affecting society that is in crisis, and in policies concerning economic growth and adaptation to the new normal. In short, 3 sets of initiatives are underway, which I believe can make a difference, namely community-based initiatives, place-making initiatives, and industry engagement initiatives. Furthermore, to help the young and others who are now out of a job, making TVET courses more attractive and accessible to them is important. And so Penang Institute, for one, is trying to create a mechanism for TVET outreach to the least privileged with help from certain agencies. In conclusion, our main aim should not only be to enhance the employability of the young, but also to realize entrepreneurship in them. This we can do through creating a supportive digital ecosphere, inspiring key players to generate as much synergy for growth as possible at all levels of society, and supporting optimism and confidence in the young. Thank you. Dato Sri.
Kiki Beng talked about digitalization, lack of collaboration, engagement. You know, I must say here that I feel there's a lack of engagement between the state government and industries in Penang, right? There should be more collaboration, right? The state should ask to go forward and find out from industries what do they need, right? Instead of staying back. So there must be more collaboration between the state authorities and the industry Penang. Remember, industrialization in Malaysia started in Penang, not in Petaling Jaya or Johor Bahru, right? So why are we being left behind now? So let's do something about it. Our third speaker is it Michelle? Oh, sorry. Dato Sri H.S. Wong. Let's hear him. Thank you.
Hello? Yeah. Can you hear me? Okay, you don't mind if I sit here to address all of you. Thank you, Dato Sri Nazir, and congratulations to you for your Lifetime Achievement Award. Before I start off, what I'd like to do is, you can see the photo on the screen, Penang, the Pearl of the Orient, and it has the best of everything. First, they have the industry, nearly 50 years now, especially the E&E industry. You can see this photo. With this industry, we have lots of experience. We have leadership, we have management, we have architect, contractors, everything that is needed to build factories. And they have been running very well and growing, not just in Bandar Pass, it's gone to Prai, to Bukit Minyak, Batu Kawan, and we have run out of land. Next is we have the heritage city, Georgetown. You can see the photo here. And If you are in Penang, you can, after work, you can also go and visit the heritage city. If not, then we have the beach resort. Next photo, please. We have a beautiful beach resort, and as well as the well-known Penang food. Lots of them for you to try. So you are here, you don't like the industry, you are tired, you go to see the heritage, if not the beach, if not the food. And last but not least, we also have the Penang Hills. Okay, it was just listed as the UNESCO's Biosphere Reserve. So Penang is a livable city. And the photo here looks like an oyster. As the saying goes, the world is your oyster. Penang is also your oyster. So if you look at Penang, we have grown since 1971 or 72 to what we are today. I think just now we heard from Penang Governor Tun talk about electronics industry. I'm really grateful that he brought this up, as I have always advocated that the E&E industry is the golden goose of Malaysia. We got to continue to nurture this, so that it will continue to grow and go up the value chain. And I think also Tan Sri Kaur also talked about how Penang have transformed over the time that we have. So today, what have been successful in Penang? Of course, we have a solid electronics industry, mainly assembly tests. We have expanded into medical device, we expanded into LEDs and many other subsectors of the electronics industry. We are good actually in automation. We have a very strong automation companies. And they took the courage to come out in the early days after learning from the MNC that they need, first of all, jigs and fixtures, and then become semi-automation, and then they wanted full automation. And our engineers and our people, our talent, decided to come out. And one of them is Chu over there from Vitrox, is sitting here. And he said that 10 years ago, our market cap for the automation companies was 200 million. Today, it is 30 billion, a growth of 150x. So, you dare to come out and have the courage and not just depend on the MNC, you can make it in Penang. Not only that, recently we just announced the formation of SkyChip, an IC product design company. These people also have the courage to come out from the MNC. They've been working for the last 20, 30 years and say that let's do it. Because the opportunity is now. I think you heard from Tan Sri about the China-US trade war and the pandemic and all that. China needs a solution. We have the talent. Why not come out and grab this opportunity to do it? And this team under SK Fong has come out to do it. And that is as a result of our encouragement under the E&E Productivity Nexus, as well as the Malaysia Semiconductor Industry Association. We are encouraging more companies to come out, to go up the value chain. Not only that, become global companies. So we're also tracking companies to get them public listed, get them as many as possible to go that path. So for SkyChip, within 1 year, they came out with 11 IPs registered in Malaysia, US, and China. So that is a fantastic feat. The first and only one, I think even in Southeast Asia, or even in Southeast Asia, they are able to do cutting-edge design of a product at 7 nanometers, if you know what I mean. So for Malaysia, and Penang, we should double down on the automation that we are strong at, and where we need to enhance, especially in the supply chain, is in addition to assembly tests, we need to either go up the value chain into design and development, or more into business and marketing. So one of the things that we have been helping the local companies is that when I asked them what is the biggest problem, they said market access. They didn't give me finance as a funding as their number one problem. They said market access. If market access, I can go and look for funding. So we formed the E&E Marketplace Malaysia portal, whereby we are getting the Malaysian companies to register with us. It's free, so that we can promote them to the world. We work with Matrade, we work with MIDA, and we get the ministers to promote them. So in that way, we can get our companies to be known to the rest of the world. The other things that we're working on is to lower the barrier to entry for design and development. So we are working with NCER, with MSIA and E&E Productivity Nexus to establish the NCER Technology Innovation Center. How does that work? We are going to provide the design tools where it is really expensive, but the companies can use that tools for a very nominal amount, or even maybe for free, to design their product so that they don't have to buy the tools. And if they're successful and they are growing, they can buy their own tools later. So we need to help them to lower the barrier to design and development. The other thing is that we are encouraging more and more multinational companies and large local companies to buy local. And I call it the Inari waterfall effect, because Inari for the last 5 years spent more than 2.5 billion ringgit on their equipment, mainly buying from our local companies. And that's how our local company can flourish, and at the same time, they can have testimonial when they go overseas. And since many of our companies, MNCs, are located in different countries like Vietnam, Philippines, and even China, these equipments also go there. But we are, relative to the world, we are still not that big. We are still small. But we still need to encourage them to do that and keep growing. The other challenge that we have is the war on talent. The talent war is a major issue in our country. Our mindset, everybody talk about mindset, has to change. You know, US have been doing it for years. You know, they have this H-1B visa, they have all kinds of visa to take you there to go and study and then let you stay and work there. And you look at all the successful Malaysians who are out there, or the British, you just name them, they are all in US. Singapore started this, I think, 50 years ago, taking all our best students from giving them the ASEAN scholarship. If you don't take the scholarship at the Standard 6, they go after you in Form 3, if not Form 5, if not then Form 6. Even after you graduate from a local university, they try to attract you to Singapore. China, on their talent program, they attracted, over the last 10 years, attracted 7,000 of world scientists and engineers from all around the world to join them. A lot of them came from US, Taiwan, and some from Malaysia. And recently, they even came to Malaysia to attract our talents. But what are we doing? We have this mindset when I speak to the government. They say that if I allow foreign engineers to work here, it deprives our Malaysians of jobs. But other countries are not seeing that. Australia, I don't see that. But they are actually creating more jobs. If I need 50 engineers now, and I allow you to hire 10 or 15 foreign engineers, next year, I will grow to 200 engineers. I created 200 jobs. Even if I hire another 50 foreign engineers, I still created 150 jobs. And you can see that in the design development area, you know, some companies have a few thousand engineers already doing design development. So, but our talent is so short that we don't have a solution today, and we need to find a solution. And one of the easiest way is that we have like 1,000 or more foreign students studying in Malaysia, especially in science and engineering. We can actually hire them, but we have a difficulty hiring them under EP1, which means that your salary has to be, EP1 means the salary is less than 5,000. And our Malaysian government ruling is that if you want to hire any foreign engineers, it has to be more than 5,000. If not, you can work for a year or two and then you have to leave. They are here. They love to work in Malaysia, and they want to work in Malaysia. They are talented. We got to use their talent. So I'm trying to change that policy to do that. The other thing is that we also have shortage of workers, factory workers. And so you can see in the newspaper over the last few days, and I wrote my article about 2 weeks ago, urging the government to unfreeze the hiring of foreign workers. The opportunity is here. The growth, as you heard from Toon, that he says that the growth over the next 2 years is 30%. Yes, 20% this year, 10% next year, and we don't see it ending yet. There is a huge shortage of semiconductor, huge shortage of electronics industry. Cost has gone up, lead time has gone up, logistics cost has gone up, everything has gone up. And so the opportunity is for us to grab, to see, we need to seize this opportunity to ship to the customers as much as possible, to grow and to expand. And many companies are expanding, and more and more companies are going to come out with lights-off factories. I think you heard WD has already announced the first factory in Malaysia. A few more factories will announce that in the electronics industry, they're going to reduce headcount. But meanwhile, we need to grab this opportunity. If not, these orders will go somewhere else. So with that, we need to have a pipeline of STEM students, and therefore we need to inspire the young to pursue science and engineering. And everybody need to come together to help to do that. Otherwise, if we keep attracting so many investments to the country, the latest investment in Kulim, the company told me that they're going to hire 1,000 engineers in 1 or 2 to 3 years. How are you going to hire 1,000 engineers? I don't know where it's going to come from. Okay, so it will be, as you know, I will go to the other company to take a few, 10, 15. That you now talk to all the companies. There is a real big war, not just on engineers. Engineers are very short, even on the factory workers. They are taking from each other. And that's not really healthy. With that, I will just end here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, SH. I endorse what you just said just now. I always believe that it is the duty of the government or the authorities to set the stage for things to happen, right? I'm old enough to see paddy fields in Bayan Lepas turned into factories, right? Some of you thought that Bayan Lepas was a factory zone. It was a paddy field, right? So how did it happen? Because the leaders of the past had foresight. Lim Chong Yu, Tun Lim Chong Yu had the foresight. I think this has to carry on. And when we talk about talent, right, we have to have the pull factor for talents, right? For that, you have to have equality in opportunities for all races. Everybody should have an opportunity to excel in whatever they do. Right? So we can't segregate and say that, oh, this is quota for that, quota for this, quota for scholarships for that, scholarships quota for this, and all that sort of thing, right? So what happened? The good people leave the country. And then we get the country run by mediocre people, right? That we don't want. I shall move on to the next speaker, which is my old friend, Michelle.
Can I just say something I forgot now? Yeah. Just now the photos was at the courtesy of David Low, our Penang Knight, you know. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle? Yep.
So good morning again, everyone. Thank you, Dato Sri, and congratulations on your well-deserved Live Award. So I represent MICCI, and as I mentioned earlier, MICCI is a very old organization, and it encompasses and represents a lot of sectors. So in 4 slides, I'm going to try to condense what all those players from those sectors are telling us as an organization. Where do I point? Yeah, So I will start with the challenges which are faced by most economic sectors in Penang. And, oops, sorry. And I make a distinction between what I believe are pre-pandemic or systemic challenges and pandemic-related challenges. So I will fully concur with my colleagues, and I start also with that nearly all the sectors are complaining about talent or staffing gaps and the mismatch between curriculum and industrial needs. We have the brain drain, which was mentioned already, going to Singapore, going to the US because they study there. There's the pinching, was also mentioned. There's short supply, STEM, software, IT, infrastructure, engineering. And on top of that, I think Dato Sri Wong also mentioned it, the youth appears to be undecided on what they want. In nearly all the factories face the problem of high turnover of fresh hires, especially for the operator jobs. There's no loyalty to a contract. They come and a few days later they go. The next topic or next challenge is the infrastructure in Penang. The governor talked already about the public transportation, the Penang Master Transportation Plan, which we are discussing since a long time already, but it's still not there. There is a need for high-speed internet, certainly with the digitalization coming up. We need definitely higher bandwidth infrastructure, and access to land was also mentioned already earlier. Land is scarce, it's an island, and the state mainland is also small. So we're all waiting for Bukit Kawan Industrial Park number 2 and maybe the reclamation in the south. Then Penang is also, next to its strengths as a manufacturing base, is also a tourist destination. And as I mentioned earlier already during my opening speech, finding the right balance between maintaining its tourist attractivity and at the same time be also attractive to the industry. That's quite a challenge. So we have to make sure that we preserve the UNESCO part, the Georgetown part, and don't make it a deserted city during the pandemic as it was, but make it a livable city even if there is a pandemic. The pandemic-related issues start with the fact that a lot of businesses cannot afford to work from home and cannot handle capacity reduction mandates. The World Bank came out with the statistics that about 64.5% of the Malaysian workforce, Malaysian jobs, can't be performed from home. That's a lot. Yeah? If on top of that you have capacity restraints, you can imagine what happens. So the jobs where physical presence is really necessary, it's in the medical sector, the education sector, the hospitality sector, the factory workers. There's no way you can do this from home. The other topic we were all confronted with was those lengthy SOPs, and they still exist. They are still about 30 pages long for all sorts of phases, and they are controlling the way one should operate, and that needs to stop, I believe. The last one is the high operation cost and need for automation, which especially is valid for the SMEs. They are suffering very hard. They have already the additional costs for the mandatory testing, for the mandated capacity reductions, the accelerated shift to digital versus their difficulty to adopt those technology solutions because they don't have either the staff or the funds to do it. So the SMEs grew very dependent on incentives and funding. My second slide is on the environment, how the environment has evolved during the last few years, and what do we need to cope with. On the global scale, we see the continuing China-US tension and China reducing its Western dependency. I believe Malaysia is a net benefiter from this. We have the Vitroxes, which were already mentioned by my colleague Dato Sri Wong, with Pentamaster, Greatech. These are companies which are really benefiting from this tension between US and China because people are investing in Southeast Asia and they need supplies from Southeast Asian suppliers. On the other hand, you also read that China is reducing its Western dependency, which is a bit a challenge for the Penang entrepreneurs, which have been typically US oriented. So they have to make sure that they maintain a balance or a neutrality, so to say, between US interests and Chinese interests. I don't need to talk about climate change. It's affecting the whole world. I think Malaysia is more or less blessed. Other than floods, we don't really see a big impact of climate change, but it's indirectly affecting us because our suppliers, we are talking about a global supply chain, are affected by it. Yeah? So we have stoppages because of that. Next trend is the change from mechanical to electrical. We move from mechanical cars to electrical cars, battery-powered cars, and from physical to digital, which was very much present in the last 18 months. So disciplines like cloud computing, big data analytics, IoT, AI will be the technologies of the future. And last but not least, we have this phenomenon now that supply is not meeting demand. It has been pandemic. The pandemic has exacerbated this problem, but nearly every economic actor is having problems with supply of raw materials, components, logistics. So the commodity prices are increasing. There is insufficient supply capacity for electronic metal parts, you name it. And on top of that, the logistic costs are booming because there's not enough ships, there's not enough containers, there's not enough capacity to work in the ports. There is the shift to e-commerce, which adds to the need for capacity. So it's a nice luxury problem, but we have the problem. And entrepreneurs are facing booming costs for logistics. On the regional and interstate environment, we see that there is a lot of competition for FDI, for medical tourism, for international students in the education sector, insourcing because the pandemic has made it necessary to look for local supplies because the borders were closed, and efficiency of the public sector. Just one example for medical tourism, Thailand is more open than Malaysia. We know that. The borders are open there. They are more desperate, and they invite those medical tourists already. And this is just one example. So there's many examples where Malaysia is behind our regional neighbors. So there's a growing trend to find alternative sources within the borders of the countries, as I mentioned already. Vietnam is much faster in offering perks and approvals to do business. And then we have the issue of, within the country, for the tourism sector, destination management, where typically the Klang Valley is promoted better than Penang. And why? Yeah. We have the border closures we have to be faced with. I mentioned it already. And in the property sector, they face a lot of problems with speed of approvals and the construction costs, specifically in Penang. For example, the state of Kedah has this so-called E10 program. As for every investor, time is money, and hence a fast-track approval process of the development orders, the building approval plans, the relevant state and municipal approvals is necessary. In Kedah, they can do this whole process in 10 months. In Penang, it takes much longer. Why? My next slide is on how these global trends I just talked about affect future entrepreneurship. There appears to be an ideologic shift, I will call it, for the next-gen entrepreneurs. It's not anymore about going for the quick buck, going for the money, which is motivating them, but it's much more for a cause, typically linked with the Sustainable Development Goals. And the new entrepreneur will be fast, nimble, tech-savvy, and crowd-funded, working for those causes. Yeah? So they are looking at digital online business models, for example. The banks are supporting that cause searching by offering incentives if your business plan has an ESG component of it. I mentioned crowdfunding is another alternative source for modest funds from engaged contributors. And I believe there is already a system in place in Penang, which is called the Penang Future Foundation, which offers 100 scholarships a year they have to broaden their scope, taking into account these global and regional trends, and focus on initiatives like, for example, smart farming, smart city, smart waste collection, everything smart. My last slide is on proposed solutions. So I think if we want to talk about the new normal, it is very important that we reset our minds. My predecessors also mentioned it already. The new normal should be based on acceptable health risk, not zero health risk. The way the pandemic was managed, certainly in its initial stage, was go for zero risk, basically. And I know every government on earth had to go to the learning curve. The Malaysian government also went through a learning curve, maybe a bit slow. And yeah, so we are where we are now. But we are, as MICCI, we have this little word, KISS, keep it simple SOPs, not 30 pages. Try to put your thoughts in 1 or 2 pages and they are valid for all the sectors. It's much easier to manage, much easier to enforce also, because you can imagine if you have 30 pages to enforce for the police force, for the enforcement agencies, is a lot more difficult. The second thing is the drivers for future success. Definitely, as my predecessors also mentioned it, we have to bank in on Penang's strengths, which is the manufacturing sector, and manufacturing sector is very broad. It's M&E, E&E, renewable energy, you name it. It's everything is there. In the 50 years now, 71, I was told, 2021, that's, yeah, we can have our golden jubilee. Penang is known in the world also as a well-experienced, well-known engineering powerhouse. For tourism, which is the second one, we have to make sure that we get it back on track. Yeah? The hotels have been suffering tremendously. They are starving of cash, you can imagine, so they are happy that their occupancy rates are now going up again, but they will definitely need some help to promote Penang again, and maybe a little bit more than what they used to do in the past. So it's trying to get the big markets back like China, Japan. That's, by the way, also valid for the education sector. And medical should focus beyond Indonesia. Then you see this is, the next point is, it's written in green. Why do I put it in green? It's because I know there's a next session, so I don't have to talk too long about it because there is a whole chapter focused on the digital transformation, which in my view, or in MICCI's view, should not only be limited to the private one, but also to the public sector. There's a lot of public sectors who are already working on digitalization, but it will really help if all the sectors are doing that. Immigration is a very good example there. It's still a very difficult animal to work with. The next topic will also be discussed later, that is revamping of the education. I think we all agree here in the panel that the source of the problem, of many problems in Malaysia, is the educational system. And it starts really from primary school all the way till the tertiary education. It's not really, it's outdated. There are still knitting classes, for example, in colleges. You wonder why there's still knitting classes. We don't do knitting anymore. No, that's not the strength of Penang anymore. So we should adapt the education system to the needs of the industry. Also, moral values, loyalty to contract, for example, responsibility, which is more on the soft touch, should be taught much stronger to our youth. We see that they have a little bit an issue on that. Yeah. Last but not least, world-class infrastructure. I mentioned it already. So 5G, public transportation plan, land, those issues. Yeah. And if I may say so, I think the role of the government has to change tremendously. Instead of being just an enforcer and an impediment to initiative, the government should adopt a totally different mindset and be more in a facilitative role, a supporting role, and a fast execution role. We all complain about that. And so they have to go through a huge transformation process. They have to offer attractive incentives for investment and reinvestment. A lot of businesses are really starving at this point in time. And for the young entrepreneurs, they have to help them. They have to babysit them and guide them along from cradle to tomb in the full entrepreneurial process. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michelle. Michelle has been with me for many years in the Malaysian International Chamber of Commerce, MICCI. It hurt me just now when you said Klang Valley is better than Penang in industrial infrastructure. That hurts, but that's the reality, right? So what is Penang doing about it, right? And you talked about tourism. Tourism, the closure of hotels. Closure of hotels is not only small hotels, big hotels. So what are we doing about it? My bank, personally, we are doing a lot for the small and medium-sized hotels. But I'm talking about international hotels, 5-star hotels, 6-star hotels. Those attract foreigners, foreign tourism. You can't live on local tourism alone, right? So if you don't have facilities for to attract foreign tourists, you're going to lose out to all the other places. You're going to lose out to everybody. You're going to lose out to Thailand, you're going to lose out to Indonesia, you're going to lose out to Vietnam. Already we have lost out in Vietnam in E&E, right, slowly. So come on, let's pull our socks up, okay? Our next and last speaker, oh, he's gone. Oh, he's there. Yeah, Stephen, thank you.
Save time.
He's hiding.
Shall I start now? Okay, thank you, fellow panelists. My slide, first slide up. Okay, this is the picture of my friend, also David Low, the one award-winning photojournalist. He is from Penang, MBS boy, but he's the head of Reuters picture globally, right? This is an example of Penang talent we have today. So my next slide is the mega trends for Penang, right? I heard all these speakers, district speakers, spoke just now, right? Tan Sri and Sheng is somebody I admire for a long time, right? He was the chief advisor to the China Security Regulatory Commission, the #1 regulator in China. So this is a man that is world class, and he's with us this morning. So I'm very privileged to be with him on the same panel. And of course, my friend Dato Sri, S.H. Wong, with experiences in the industry and all the different panelists. So this morning, I want to share about what my view is a megatrend. So I won't repeat what the other guy has said. But what I saw is this, that I see a social and green revolution. That's why I set up Seed Penang, like social entrepreneurs. And the last 1 year, I raised about 9.75 million ringgit for 2 social enterprises in Penang, right? So despite the COVID-19, I still managed to raise money for them, right? 9.75 ringgit for 2 social enterprises in Penang, right? So money that comes to Penang economy, small amount, but it's still some money, right? Penang. And I also see the Undi 18, right? Is also a game changer for Penang as well for the whole Malaysia, right? With the Undi 18 law passed by end of the year, we'll see about 5.8 million young voters on board. And every year, 500,000 youth will come on board to be voters. So this could be a mega trend for Penang as well, right? And I won't repeat the rest of them because it's been repeated. But I saw e-commerce as a very big trend. Most of us here know about e-commerce B2C, but the bigger picture is the B2B e-commerce, right? With blockchain, you see a massive transformation of the industry. Even China now going to B2B e-commerce. So it's not just B2C. Today, B2C e-commerce sounds very big. It's only 10% of the global trade, global retail trade. So the big trend is actually B2B e-commerce, what I see. So I won't repeat the challenges. I think Dr. Sri Wong gave us a lot of good picture about Penang's industry challenges. What I learned is interesting, that today, Penang MNCs, SMEs are having too much order They have too many orders to fulfill. They can't find enough workers, right? That's a happy problem. So I'd like to offer some solution to Dato Sri Wong, right? And some challenges we have today in Penang. Obviously, we have the challenges of inadequate ICT infrastructure and also an anemic startup ecosystem. We do not have a healthy ecosystem for startup, right? But since the formation of Digital Penang, I'm very happy to see the CEO, Tony Yeo, and Silva are doing a good job. I think they're doing a good job. I've been observing them on the quiet side, but I think they're doing a good job. They are bringing people together, you know. So I see a very good sign happening in Penang for startup ecosystem. Because I was in Singapore for 30 years, and I watched Singapore from nowhere, no startup system, to today, right? And Professor Lily Chan is one of the promoters of entrepreneurship in Penang. She's now sitting here in Penang with us, Wawasan Vice Chancellor. So we have world-class talent now sitting here with us, right? But we need to maximize them, right? And what I see in Penang is, okay, the big picture is the talent pool. We don't have enough talent to meet the need of industries. And those that you don't see, they are left already, right? And one of the things I see is, of course, we lost to Singapore, we lost to everywhere, right? I was having a conversation with Dato P.Y. Lai recently on the phone. He was telling me that the chip design engineers in Penang, maybe 5 years, maybe 5K ringgit salary, but in China, they are paying 20K ringgit salary. So that's 4 times salary. So how can you not be, tempted to go somewhere else, right? I mean, I know that we have been promoting Penang is a great place to work, live and play. That was the message we're telling investors, right? And since we're doing well, right? Penang is a great place to work, live and play. But if I'm a young man, young engineers, 3 times salary to me is very tempting, right? Only today, I'm back to Penang, I began to appreciate the picture of Wong Hai's picture of the food. But when I was young, I was too busy making money, right? I don't have no time to enjoy. I was too busy thinking about how to make money, how to build a career. So we need to think carefully about what our message to people, right? It doesn't mean that people will come to Penang because we have great food, and good jobs here. So the pay has to be very more competitive. The pay is not competitive, then we have to find a way to upgrade our value chain so they can pay higher, right? You can't just pay 1/3. That's not a sustainable pay scale. I don't think it's able to sustain the kind of system people can go anywhere in the world, work anywhere, right? So my next slide is the opportunity that I see in Penang. I work part-time with Dato Halim. So I have some insight. I'm not with the government full-time, but I do have some insight involved in conversation. But I think I'd like to share one of the things that I've been working on recently, right? Which is the Penang Medan, right? The Penang managed, we proposed a Penang managed industrial and business park in Medan, right? As you know, Indonesia has been talking to us for the last 30 years, but nothing happened, right? There's a lot of things. But over the last 10 years, since Pak Jokowi came to power, a lot of changes happening. And recently we are in conversation. How do we get Penang managed industrial park like Singapore and Suzhou, Singapore Batam Park, right? Our Penang has got experience. All the samurai, we have 8 samurais came to Penang years ago. Now we have Penang local samurai. Maybe the Mr. Chu, the Vitrox, all this Pentamaster, they can lead the way to bring SMEs together to go invest in Medan Industrial Park together. And they will be able to solve their problem with foreign workers issue. Some of the issues can be resolved. So I think Indonesia is now open for business. A lot of the new law, omnibus laws, is getting more friendly. So I hope to play a role to make this happen, right? So I'm not a academician, I'm an entrepreneur. So I make it happen, right? So hopefully. And then the last thing I'm going to share about is the deep tech and 4.0 startup, right? So I keep myself busy because I'm advising one CEO in Silicon Valley, right? He's bringing his software to Penang, right? He has done a good job in US, California, Norway, and he wants to bring his product to Southeast Asia, right? So I'm arranging for his machine-based system now to test on the Penang company. And then I got companies. So I'm just looking forward to work with more startups so in Penang. So the next slide is this. I want to share with you, we need to look at this problem with the whole Penang approach, right? because there are 3 R's. Right? First one, we need to we need to refresh the HR. Right? The issue that's mentioned by Dr. Sri Wong is not a new issue. Right? We have problem with hiring engineers. Right? So we need to review the pay scale. How to get the scale up to the level that people will not leave Penang and go somewhere else. Right? Maybe they don't need to pay 3 times. Pay me 1.5 times more, I'll probably stay in Penang. Right? So I think there are things we need to review the pay scale. And then we need to renovate the culture. Right? One thing is be more inclusive. Right? All the silos I've been working with, I see silo with federal and state, right? Different agencies don't want to talk to each other. I think we need to be more inclusive, right? And the growth mindset and lifelong learning. And I think generations. I don't think the government has a role to play to be the leader of the entrepreneurship system. We need to have the entrepreneurs, like maybe Mr. Chu, all the entrepreneurs themselves lead the entrepreneurship drive in Penang. But people like me, who's not full-time entrepreneur, can be instigator. I'm just an instigator, facilitator. So is government as well, right? And then we need to leverage on the local resources, allow the old money to invest into startups, and perhaps the Penang diaspora. Globally, I see Penang diaspora, fantastic people, world-class people. Even here, sitting here, right? World-class people all over the world. I see Singapore, US, anywhere I see people are diaspora. So we need to tap into their network, know-how, and money. And then the second thing is we need to revive the connectivity. In Penang, I've been hosting mayors, officers from China. I don't see a one-stop shop for China investor. We love America. We embrace America. We love the Europeans. We love the Americans. But yet, we don't seem to able to connect well with China. The rise of China is a real trend. We need to work with China. So having a one-stop center with China. And then we need to revisit ASEAN, right? You must don't hate Singapore, love Singapore. Singapore is a place to connect to their resources, network. People has come back from Singapore. I tell in Singapore, a lot of the ASEAN scholars are the CEO of companies in Singapore, not the Singapore scholar, ASEAN scholar. A lot of the officers in Singapore, number 2, are all Malaysians. Number 1, if you want to be number 1, be a Singaporean. You keep the PR, you become a number 2. So you can see everywhere you go, all Malaysians working in Singapore. And then we need to play niche with Japan, Taiwan, and Korea, because Korea, they are the best, the BTS. The BTS contributed $5 billion US to the economy of Korea. So if you want to learn how to do a creative economy, go to Korea and learn, right? And enhance the link to Middle East and Africa, because I've been involved in the halal industry. I know that there are a lot of demand for halal food from Malaysia today. Last point is recharge the industry. We need to recalibrate the e-industry, because I'm not deep involved, but create new clusters, right? I was among the first wave of IT managers to hire from India, software development. Today, Indians everywhere in Singapore. But in the 80s, when I hired Indians, there was not many Indians. But today, even Indians are not coming to Singapore, because they're doing so well in India. There are 2.8 unicorns being formed every month in India. 2.8 unicorns every month in India. So they're not coming to Singapore to work. So they are staying in India, getting good pay as well in India. So you need to relook at the talent pool strategy as well, right? And the last thing was the M&A, and the third country cross-border collaboration, right? Currently, I was in a project. I was seeing the China government working with a Malaysian company do a farming project in Indonesia, right? This is the kind of we can do in Penang. We can be able to facilitate Japan, China, Korea to Indonesia. This is what I see. So on my last thought, right? My last thought, this is the picture. Okay, but my last picture, this is my. So my point is that, are we going to be happy with 5% growth? I saw the 12 Malaysian plan, right? Penang going to have 5% growth, and I saw the last 5 years was 3.7% GDP growth. This is not the kind of growth we want to expect for Penang, right? It's a 5 times growth, and Dato Sri Wong was saying the 150 times market cap, right? So we need to think big, just like Tan Sri and Sheng was saying, that we need to think big. We are already world class, but we need to think big, right? And I don't know why the slide's not here. The next, yeah. So last slide, this is the last one, right? So this is the picture of the farm that I have to fund. That is a farm for vanilla. First in Malaysia, the smart farming for vanilla, right? The founder were looking for money, but after the COVID happened, all the investors ran away, right? But I found an investor who's very socially minded, right? Because they wanted to invest in this company. So they put the whole trench, took the whole trench, right? So now the vanilla is going to flower this month already, right? So I'd like to end with one thought is that we can, so we can grow Penang economy 100 times, 60 times if we will work together. Let's all work together, and I see today a picture of our unity among the Penang. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Stephen. I shall open for questions from the floor for a few minutes. Then we'll wrap up the session. Can I have anybody who wants to ask any questions from the five speakers, please? Hello, good morning, good afternoon. Any questions? You have not been listening, you mean? It's bad enough. Yes, Priscilla.
Yeah, at least you know my name. I'm Priscilla Dawson from MICCI Penang. Okay, we all agreed that education is one of the problems that we are facing. Now, my question to all of you there, any one of you can answer, is how would you actually address it? I mean, how do we, are we going to just send some kind of a memorandum to the federal government on the education ministry with suggestions of how we can improve the education system for the long term? Because the current education blueprint that was done, I think in 2015, is quite redundant and cannot be used, and it was supposed to be for a 20-year period. Thank you.
Who would like to answer that question? Dato.
Maybe I'll try this. I think we have all been working in silos. And the real issue now is we can't operate in silos anymore. What we're trying to do at Wawasan Open University is to reach out to the schools and the employers. And we need to connect the dots. And connecting the dots is a very difficult job, as we all know. Success is always about the last mile, right? So if you look at the schools, the teachers are very frustrated, probably underpaid. The parents are very frustrated. The students are probably getting the education that doesn't fit them because they know digitization better than their teachers, right? So and then when they go to university, the curriculum is outdated, right? And then when the employers hire this guy and then say or whatever and say, "Whoa, I have to completely retrain them." So we really need to sit down. The point that I was trying to address this morning is that we always say somebody else must do it. The government must do it. We now have reached the stage. The politics is such that we have to do it all ourselves. And that's what I would like to encourage everybody. Start now, think what you can do to help your local school, your local university, as employers, and work with them, rather than saying, well, let the government do it. How can the government do it? If I'm a civil servant, I don't understand what your industry wants in terms of curricula. Okay? All I know is how to give instruction to the school. You must do this. But the teacher then says, how can I do this? I'm not trained for this. So everybody is looking at each other, and that's why we're in this collective action trap. And the collective action trap is a mindset trap, right? And it's that change in the mindset now that we really must think through, because if the pandemic even if the pandemic cannot shock us, we're in deep trouble. Because while I'm just telling you this, all around us, Malaysia was number 3 before, and we're down to number 6 in ASEAN. Penang, with $400 billion, 40% of Malaysia's exports, number 6 in GDP within Malaysia. Something's wrong. Something's seriously wrong. Our value added actually is not getting there, and the value added is not getting there because the wages are too low. But the wages are too low because the education doesn't bring them up. So who is responsible for bringing up the education? You and me. We can't run away from this anymore, okay? Right? We can't run away with this more. We really now need to sit down with the employers, you know, the teachers and the schools and the ministry to figure out how to raise that education issue. Because if we don't, we're in deep trouble. Malaysia spends more per capita on education than Finland, 6% of GDP. Who are we training our people for? All our neighbors. I'm sorry to say this. Okay? And then we have local companies complaining we can't get the workers. How is that possible? We have one of the youngest demographic profiles in ASEAN also, even relative to Indonesia. How is it that we spend 6% of education of GDP on education and we're getting this and people complain about lack of talent? Can't be. So, you know, I'm pleading with all you guys, employers, work with the universities, work with the schools, and let's get that ecosystem working. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with you, Tan Sri. In fact, this thing about mismatch of graduates to industry, right? This has been going on for the last 10, 15 years. But we still have not solved the mismatch because universities are reluctant to change the syllabus and they produce graduates who are unemployable, and that's why we are in this mess, right? Anyway, next question. Sure.
This is Hakiam. Can you hear me?
Yes, okay.
I'm from PwC, MICCI as well. Yeah, we are trying to solve a problem. I like the idea that we need to do it locally. We need to do it from the community perspective. But to be honest, please forgive me. Don't kill me after this statement. People in this room, more than 70% wanted their kids to go overseas, abroad to study and hope that they never come back.
Yeah, true.
So I'm the one that rejected my son from getting the scholarship from Singapore. And I believe if he go at the standard 6, he will not come back. And therefore, I wouldn't want to sign a contract with him. If he go to UK and never come back, he will not get anything and he has to pay back my debt. But my question here, if every one of us here and hope that our children will not come back, how would we hope others to solve the issues for ourselves? Thank you.
That was a statement, right? You're not asking a question. It's okay, it's okay. You don't have to. We are out of time already. I've just been told that I've got to wrap this up. And then, yeah, I'd like to thank all my speakers here. I'm just disappointed that I don't see many government people here. I only see one. Where is Invest Penang? Come on. Where is Invest Penang? In KL? Oh, sorry. Yeah, anyway. So, I mean, I'm sorry. I think, I hope this is not all a waste of time. All my speakers talking and the whole day we're going to talk about it. If you have one representative in Penang trying to take it all, I'm so sorry about it. Right? Anyway, thank you very much for listening to us and a very good morning.